What is up, friends, and welcome to my full review of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power Season 1. Spoilers for the entire season ahead, so let's just jump into it. As I said in my Season 1 First Impressions video, I was not super familiar with the original She-Ra or He-Man prior to watching the new show, but I enjoyed Princesses of Power so much that I actually went back and watched a ton of the original She-Ra and He-Man, and even some of the 2002 He-Man series. Now I own a He-Man / She-Ra episode guide and encyclopedia, so the new series did a really great job getting me into the franchise. That being said, Princesses of Power obviously has a much different tone and style than the original, and I think that's a really good thing. They weren't trying to recreate the former series, but they did pull some great story points to create a completely new experience for modern audiences. In this review, I'm mostly just going to talk about the characters, story, and lore without much referencing back to the original show, though I will reference it occasionally. And if you aren't familiar with my review style, I basically recap each episode while giving my input and analysis throughout. She-Ra and the Princesses of Power begins with a two-parter called The Sword and does an awesome job setting up the characters and setting for the series. We meet our hero Adora and establish that she's a strong soldier with her own team training to be part of the Horde's army. More importantly, they establish her friendship with Catra, which is a huge part of the overarching story and one of the highlights of the show. We also meet Shadow Weaver, the second in command of the Horde, who has respect for Adora but not so much for Catra. Next we jump to Bright Moon, which leads the rebellion at war with the Horde, meeting Princess Glimmer and her mother Queen Angela. We quickly meet Bo, Glimmer's best friend and ally to the rebellion. The show does such a great job organically introducing us to the world and lore throughout the first couple of episodes. I felt like I really understood the world, its history, and its conflicts after the two-part premiere. Back in the Fright Zone, Shadow Weaver tells Adora she plans to promote her to Force Captain, a leadership position in the Horde military, but that her team and Catra aren't ready to make the move. After Adora breaks this news to Catra, the two of them steal a Horde skiff and adventure out of the Fright Zone, a great sequence that really highlights their friendship and chemistry. Catra crashes the vehicle, knocking Adora into the Whispering Woods, where a mysterious sword calls out to her and shows her a vision. That night, she decides to go back to the Whispering Woods to follow her vision, while Glimmer and Bo simultaneously head into the woods to track down the first one's tech that Bo detected. This is a really interesting scene because it showcases the different perspectives of Adora and Glimmer / Bo. Adora doesn't fully understand the evil the Horde perpetuates while believing that all princesses are evil beings themselves. Glimmer and Bo know the horrendous acts that the Horde has perpetrated and can't comprehend that Adora wouldn't understand them either, as she's now a Horde Force captain. I love the sequence when Adora finally touches the sword, showing another vision that hints at the past of Etheria and Adora as well. This shot of the portal with the baby crying is definitely hinting at how Adora was kidnapped as a child and brought to Etheria, which I expect to be explored more thoroughly in future seasons. I also love the sequence where Adora first turns into She-Ra. I was really amped by her transformation and the way she saved Glimmer and Bo. The Sailor Moon-like sequence is rad, and I love that it's got an anime vibe to it. They find their way into a First One's ruin, and it's revealed that Adora can now read First One's writing. She reads the word Eternia on the castle door, which opens it up for them, and if you aren't familiar, Eternia is actually the planet where He-Man and his alter ego Prince Adam reside. In the original series, Prince Adam and Adora are twins, and Adora was kidnapped from Eternia as a baby, which is what they seem to be hinting at in the vision sequence earlier. They end up in the village of Thamar, and Adora is immediately curious to check out this new society. This is another great character building moment for Adora. She's been raised by a singular type of society with no access to the outside world. Though she's been told one thing her entire life, as soon as she experiences it for herself, she can see the world for what it is. The part where she absolutely freaks out seeing a horse for the first time is one of the highlights of the series. It's just so fun and silly and funny. I really like that stuff. When Shadow Weaver finds out Adora is missing, she sends Catra and the Horde army to find her, and they all converge at the village of Thamar. Glimmer risks her own life to give Adora the Sword of Protection, and her epic transformation fends off the Horde single-handedly, saving what's left of Thamar. This two-part premiere was so strong and did such a great job building out the world, characters, and conflict. Adora is an instantly likable protagonist, even though she starts off on the side of evil, and you truly feel for Catra as she loses her best friend to the opposing side. Glimmer's personality shines through immediately. It's shown that she's a little stubborn, but only because she so strongly believes in the rebellion and that she's doing the right thing. Bo is easily one of my favorite characters. He's funny, skilled, and isn't afraid to question the status quo. Of course, he fears the Horde, but as soon as Adora saved them, he stopped fearing her and seemed to trust Adora before she even understood the true evils of the Horde herself. The locations and backgrounds are probably the best thing about the animation for the series, and I love the way the darker palette of the Fright Zone juxtaposes that of the Whispering Woods and Bright Moon, which are both vibrant and beautiful. Raz is the third episode and opens with Glimmer, Bo, and Adora arriving at Bright Moon. The sequence where Adora accidentally turns Horsey into Swiftwind is genuinely one of my favorites, and the reaction from the horse when he sees his own transformation was such a great decision. Of course, an animal would be freaked out by something like that. That was just funny and natural and a good call. Adora retreats to the woods and meets an old swamp lady named Madame Raz. Now, Madame Raz is another character from the original series, and I think the way they handled her character in Princesses of Power is much better than the original. She-Ra's fight with the Horde was really cool and showcased how strong She-Ra is. I loved seeing her cut off part of the tank and just toss it at the other tank, and just bowl over all of the soldiers like they were nothing. Madame Raz telling Adora that Horsey wants to be called Swiftwind was a a really funny scene.
Also, he wanted me to make sure that you know that Horsey was a stupid name.
This is especially funny because I've seen so many fans of the original complain about the name being Horsey instead of Spirit, and them literally directly saying that Horsey is a stupid name in the show is just too perfect. She-Ra walking into Bright Moon to pledge herself to the rebellion was an epic moment, and I loved the look of awe on everyone's face as she walked in. This was such a cool way for her to enter the rebellion and prove her allegiance, and we got a perfect parallel scene back in the Fright Zone as Shadow Weaver forces a reluctant Catra to face Hordak and answer for what has happened. Despite Catra's reluctance and Shadow Weaver's disapproval, Hordak promotes Catra to Force Captain in Adora's place. I absolutely love the parallel journeys that we see for Adora and Catra, and the fact that they are such close friends makes it that much more interesting. Feels like with Catra, they're going for a similar vibe as Zuko in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Zuko was definitely an antagonist for most of that series, but for certain storylines they also introduced worse villains for Zuko to face off against and showcase his own skills, moral compass, and character. Even though he was a bad guy at first, we cheered for him against characters like Admiral Zhao and even his own sister Azula. While we know Catra is part of the Horde, we want her to succeed over characters like Shadow Weaver. The fourth episode, Flowers for She-Ra, shows Adora's attempts to adapt to her new lifestyle and begins to introduce us to other princesses of power. Adora, Glimmer, and Bow go on a mission to help Princess Perfuma of Plumeria. Plants and trees of the land are dying due to the Horde's nearby encampment, and knowing of She-Ra's ancient abilities, they want her to heal the plants and trees. She-Ra hasn't mastered her healing abilities yet and tries to convince the people of Plumeria to help them fight the Horde base that's poisoning the land. Together, She-Ra, Perfuma, and everyone else overthrow the Horde base, and Perfuma agrees to be the first to join the new Princess Alliance. This episode does a lot of awesome stuff to not only set up long-term stories and series themes, but make meta commentary on the series itself. The episode literally has She-Ra saying, "I'm a new She-Ra. She's different than the ancient She-Ra that the people of Etheria have heard about, and she's also different than the She-Ra that kids watched on TV in the 80s. She-Ra isn't just a savior of the people anymore. She's more than that. Now she's inspiration for people to become stronger and better, and I think this is one of the strongest aspects of the show, and it rings true throughout the series. Perfuma didn't think her flower growing powers were enough to fight against the Horde, but she was wrong. With She-Ra, Glimmer, and Bow's help, they overcame the odds, beat the Horde encampment, and healed the land. The Sea Gate is the fifth episode and continues the Princess Alliance recruitment plan. Glimmer, Bow, and Adora recruit a sea captain named Seahawk to take them to Selenius, where the Sea Gate and Princess Mermista reside. Seahawk's introduction is straight out of Star Wars and directly parallels Han Solo's introduction in A New Hope. Adora wins Seahawk's services by arm wrestling him, and I think it's pretty rad that they continue to show Adora's strength outside of her She-Ra abilities. Shadow Weaver sends Catra and fellow Force Captain Scorpia to retrieve Adora from the Sea Gate. Scorpia is one of my favorite characters in the show, and even though she's a bad guy, they make her really likable. And I think we can probably expect Scorpia to come around to the rebellion later in the series. I'm a little on the fence about his sea shanties. I generally found them to be pretty funny, especially with how enamored by Seahawk Bow was, but the shanties also felt a little jarring in the middle of the episode. It was still fun though, and fit Seahawk's character pretty well. When they reach Selenius, we meet Princess Mermista, who is absolutely hilarious. Such a funny performance from Bella Lovell. I love how distinct each princess is from one another, and it especially creates for some great group dynamics later in the series. I loved the fighting on the boats at the Sea Gate, and we got some pretty cool action with Bow, Scorpia, Seahawk, and Mermista, plus another great Adora/Catra scene. Rather than stopping She-Ra from healing the gate, Catra tries to make Adora jealous about her new position with the Horde and shame her into returning. It highlights the conflict within Catra. She loves and misses her best friend and isn't willing to take the opportunity to defeat her because of her attachments. This is a really fun episode that introduced us to three really great new characters, Mermista, Seahawk, and Scorpia. It showcased some really great action, had some fun musical sequences, and really lovely character moments. Episode 6 is called System Failure and introduces us to Princess Entrapta, another really cool character. Unfortunately, Entrapta's castle has been overrun by her first one's tech-based robots. Bow is pulled aside by the kitchen staff to protect him from the rampant tech, while Glimmer and Adora meet Entrapta. While fighting some of the first one's tech, the Sword of Protection and She-Ra are infected, which reverts her back to Adora and basically makes her drunk for most of the episode. This made for some pretty funny dialogue and sequences and allowed them to showcase Bow, Glimmer, and Entrapta for the remainder of the story. Entrapta is a really interesting character. We know that she isn't necessarily a bad person, but her priorities lie with technology and innovation, not necessarily with the rebellion or fighting the Horde. I loved Bow's story in this episode as he was separated from Adora, Glimmer, and Entrapta. His subplot with the kitchen staff not only showcases great character development for Bow, but further establishes some major themes for the series as a whole. Bow essentially helps inspire the three members of the kitchen staff, helping them see that they aren't just ordinary people. Everyone has something positive to add to the rebellion and the overall fight for what's right. Even though they don't have any powers or abilities, they work together to stop the bots and save Glimmer, Entrapta, and Adora. We got to see Bow's leadership skills shine through without relying on his natural fighting abilities. In the remainder of the episode, the kitchen staff shows courage and bravery thanks to Bow's leadership. Bow overrides the robots and Entrapta pledges her allegiance to the rebellion, though we see again that her real allegiance is to technology and innovation. In the Shadows of Mysticore is the 7th episode and introduces us to a character with possibly the silliest name in all of the He-Man/She-Ra canon, Castaspella. After She-Ra was infected in the previous episode, Adora is really on edge, and Glimmer suggests taking a vacation to Mysticor, where Glimmer's Aunt Casta lives. We get to see some really awesome and spooky magic from Shadow Weaver in this episode, and we also learn a lot about her backstory. Shadow Weaver used to be a sorceress known as Light Spinner in Mysticor long ago. This partially lines up with her backstory in the original She-Ra, as well as the added Light Spinner info used in the 2008 Masters of the Universe Classics toy line. Shadow Weaver infiltrates Mysticor with her magic, and Adora has to not only face off against her, but her own demons and insecurities as well. Adora's sword transforms into a shield, and she uses it to defeat Shadow Weaver's magic without even turning into She-Ra. This was a great character building episode for Adora, overcoming her own insecurities and embracing her role in the rebellion even without her alter ego She-Ra. The 8th episode is called Princess Prom, and while it seemed like it might have been a light fun break, it was actually a pretty intense episode. Glimmer is excited to go to the prom with Bo, as they normally go as best friends, but Bo is actually going with Perfuma, causing drama between them. This is another great relationship building episode and showcases some great character development for Glimmer and Bo. Even though Glimmer is leading this rebellion and forging the new Princess Alliance, there are certain things she doesn't want to change, like her relationship with Bo. Meanwhile, Bo understands and sees that the rebellion is growing and changing, and is doing his best to embrace the new members and expand their tight-knit friend circle. We also learn that Scorpia is actually a princess and is therefore invited to the ball. Scorpia's character development and backstory was another highlight of this episode, as we find out that she never really fit in with other princesses, which likely led to her desire to stay with the Horde and fight in their military. This is also the first time where we get to see almost all of the princesses interact with one another, and the group dynamic is one of my favorite parts of the series. I really dig that Princess Frosta is younger than the rest of the princesses, and I liked that we got a more neutral princess in the ongoing Horde/Rebellion dispute. It showcases the precarious position that some of these nations of people are in, and doesn't make the conflict look so black and white. I also dug that they actually failed to recruit a princess to their alliance, instead of just achieving all of their goals without many issues. The dancing sequence was a really fun and well choreographed way to have Adora talk to multiple people and push the multiple subplots forward at once. Catra and Scorpia's plan succeeds as they escape the prom, kidnapping both Bo and Glimmer and stealing the Sword of Protection. The episode ends on a cliffhanger in every sense of the term. This is where the show starts to move into a more serialized format. While there are important story elements that carried over through the first 8 episodes, these last 5 pretty much lead directly into one another. I like when shows walk this line between episodic and serialization when necessary, and She-Ra handled this really well. Episode 9, No Princess Left Behind, shows the remainder of the Princess Alliance go on a rescue mission, though oddly we never actually see how Adora gets down from the cliff in the last episode. This is the first time we get to see the Princess Alliance in action, as Adora uses her knowledge of the Fright Zone to coordinate a rescue plan even without the Sword of Protection. It was great to see the princesses use their various powers and skills on the mission, and was reminiscent of shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender or Steven Universe, where we have teams of characters with unique abilities. The episode also showed off more of Bo's friend-making abilities by essentially recruiting one of the Horde members, Kyle, to help him escape. After Bo escapes with the other princesses, Adora surrenders to try and rescue Glimmer. Adora and Glimmer escape, and on their way out, Catra actually gives Adora back the Sword of Protection. This was a great moment. Catra claims it's not because she likes Adora, but I think she was kidding herself a little bit. Her true motivation was self-serving, as she didn't want to give up her position of power within the Horde. She's mentioned multiple times that she has bigger goals, to replace Shadow Weaver as Hordak's second in command, and making sure Shadow Weaver's plan failed spectacularly is all part of that plan. On their way out, Entrapta is caught in the base as an explosion breaks out, in what I felt was a pretty unclear situation for the character. When She-Ra and Glimmer make it out, the Alliance claims that Entrapta died during their escape. This was a slightly confusing plot point for me, since we all saw exactly what the princesses saw, and it did not seem clear that she had died, but I definitely understand this from a story perspective. I think they probably could have done a slightly better job illustrating that the explosion was deadlier, but this is a minor issue, and more importantly, it led to a major shakeup in the Princess Alliance. Episode 10, The Beacon, continues the serialized episodes and picks up as soon as the Alliance returns from the mission. Some of the team decides that them being together makes them vulnerable, and that the entire thing was a bad idea, essentially breaking up the Princess Alliance. Perfuma's tribute to Entrapta was really touching, and seeing Frosta close off her castle to the rest of Etheria was a pretty big deal given her stance in the previous episode. We also get the not so surprising revelation that Entrapta survived the explosion in the previous episode, which leads to the fascinating new alliance between Catra, Scorpia, and Entrapta, which makes sense given that Entrapta was actually a villain in the original series. The Horde allows Entrapta to do the kinds of inventing and innovating with First One's tech that she dreams of, which is not good news for the Princess Alliance. Adora decides it's time to figure out She-Ra's healing abilities and ends up leaving Bright Moon to seek information information in the first one's ruins, or what we'll soon know as the Crystal Castle. There's a great scene between Glimmer and Angela where Angela reveals that she ordered the battle that killed her husband and Glimmer's father, Micah. I love heartfelt and emotional scenes like this. They simultaneously strengthen character relationships while expanding important backstories. Angela's anguish and guilt for her husband's death gives some context to her protective nature over Glimmer. It goes beyond being her mother. She fears she'll be responsible for the death of another loved one. This is why she was so willing to give herself up in exchange for Glimmer's life and no princess left behind. While Adora searches for answers in the Crystal Castle, Catra catches up with her, which leads to one of the best episodes in the series called Promise. As Catra and Adora explore the Crystal Castle, we see numerous visions/memories of their shared history, giving some beautiful context to the nature of their friendship through the years. Catra also reveals one of her motivations for saving Adora was to prevent Shadow Weaver from erasing her memories, which shows how important their friendship still is to Catra. Where one might have assumed the shared memories could have re-sparked their friendship, it actually motivated Catra to move on and empower herself. Even though Adora's motivations seemed to stem from her love and concern for Catra, this made Catra feel inferior, as though she was dependent on Adora's protection. She walks away as Adora hangs from a cliff again, and Light Hope tells Adora she must let go. This is obviously literal and metaphorical, as she lets go of the cliff while letting go of her attachment to Catra. This is easily one of my favorite episodes of the series, as it focuses on what is probably the strongest aspect of the show, the friendship/rivalry between Adora and Catra. I'm sure, like me, most fans desperately want to see their friendship rekindled, for Catra to find her way to the rebellion, and for their strong bond to be used for good. Rightfully, the show instead uses this fascinating relationship to showcase two parallel journeys, as well as an amazing framing device for how we see good and evil. Episode 11, Light Hope, drops some major history and holds some cool changes to the She-Ra lore, as well as some rad deep-cut references to previous He-Man series. It also brings back Swiftwind, who talks for the first time in the series, which obviously was super jarring to just about everyone, audience, and characters alike. I think this is actually a sort of homage to the original She-Ra series, which also introduced Swiftwind's ability to talk in an incredibly jarring manner. The Crystal Castle has some real Fortress of Solitude vibes, a connection with She-Ra's past that provides her with information about herself in the first ones, not unlike Superman's experience in the Fortress of Solitude. Light Hope explains that the first ones traveled from across the stars to settle Etheria, and based on the fact that Eternia is name dropped in the Crystal Castle, I think we can assume the first ones are from Eternia. She also reveals that there have actually been other She-Ras before Adora, but the line was broken, making Adora the first She-Ra in 1,000 years. She also reveals that the various princesses garner power through their rune stones, and that harmony between all of them is necessary for harmony across Etheria, establishing a major long-term goal for the series. This also means that it will be necessary to win over both Entrapta and Scorpia at some point down the line. It's also revealed that the Horde uses Black Garnet, Scorpia's runestone, which also seems to be the source of Shadow Weaver's power. Light Hope also teaches Adora about Mara, who was name-dropped by Madame Raz back in episode 3. She's the previous She-Ra who broke the She-Ra line by stranding Etheria in the dimension of Despondos. Despondos is an awesome deep-cut reference to the 2002 He-Man series, as well as the 2008 Masters of the Universe action figures, which told stories through their character bios. It's previously been shown to be a dark dimension opened by dark sorcerers. In the 2002 He-Man, Hordak was trapped in Despondos. This is another potential long-term goal established for the series. At some point, Adora must release Etheria from the dark dimension, and we see Catra officially defeat Shadow Weaver and overtake her in the eyes of Hordak. Entrapta's mechanism sends a magical pillar into the sky, messing with the atmosphere on Etheria. Bo, Glimmer, and Swiftwind help get Adora out of the Crystal Castle and observe what's happening to Etheria, setting up the epic finale of Season 1, the Battle of Bright Moon. Catra sends a full-scale attack on Bright Moon, and the remainder of the Alliance prepare to defend it. She-Ra goes full-on badass as she basically tries to defend Bright Moon single-handedly, but the Horde army proves to be too much for her alone. Fortunately, the rest of the Princess Alliance returns to defend Bright Moon, the perfect climax for the season. I loved how Frosta cruised into the battle like Frozone from The Incredibles, just a great entrance. The team joins forces and fends off the Horde together, and the series lives up to its name. This isn't just a show about She-Ra, it's about She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. The final sequence showing all of the princesses fight together was perfect. Again, it's the type of coordinated, skill-based combat you see out of Avatar: The Last Airbender and Steven Universe, and I can't wait to see more of it in this show. The final scene of the season was really fitting and set up the future of the series. Catra, Scorpia, and Entrapta face Hordak, who officially promotes Catra to second in command. The Princess Alliance is back together, and the Horde seems to be in a strong position moving forward, setting the stage for Season 2. This was such a satisfying season of television that simultaneously set up so many questions that I cannot wait to get answers for. I'm really hyped to learn more about Mara and the previous incarnations of She-Ra, and what led Mara to the decision to trap Etheria in Despondos. This also means that Madame Raz is over 1,000 years old, and that's a character I definitely want them to explore more moving forward. The Princess Alliance also has to fully forge at some point, and there seem to be 12 different princesses with runestones, though we didn't get a great look at all of them. The series hooked me so quickly, and I can't cannot wait to see more. The characters were so well defined, the world building was thorough and organic, and the show pulled just the right amount of lore from the original franchise without straight up retelling that story. I love that the characters' relationships are at the forefront of the series. In fact, the entire goal of She-Ra is to form new relationships with the other princesses. This show isn't about a flawless hero who saves the day, it's about how fighting for what's important can only be done together, utilizing diverse skills and worldviews to better attack and understand the issues at hand. It's a beautiful message for kids to learn at a young age, and something that a lot of adults could learn as well. It's something that transcends Etheria. It's something that we need to embrace in the real world. This is genuinely my favorite new cartoon series this year, pretty easily in fact, and I'm so stoked to hear from fellow fans about what spoke to them in this series. If you enjoyed listening to me talk about She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, I have good news. You can expect more She-Ra analysis soon. I write and produce a series for Nerdist called Animation Investigation, and this week's episode is about how She-Ra might plant the seeds for a new He-Man spin-off, so look for a link to that at the end of this video. I also might be doing a discussion review with the YouTube channel The Roundtable, so keep an eye out for that, and please tell me what you loved most about She-Ra down below in the comments. My favorite part about analyzing cartoons is discussing them with all of you. As always, if you like this video, do not forget to comment, like, subscribe, share, and stay tuned for more cartoon analysis. Alright folks, I will catch you next time.
Johnny! Two Cellos!